Hello everyone, my name is Jen and welcome to the book Refuge and welcome to a channel member sponsored video. Okay, if you don't know, if you become a channel member of mine at the romantic renegade level or higher, you get to help vote on a topic where I make a video each month that is recommended by you guys. So this video is one that, I've made. I've talked about a lot of these books quite a lot over the years, but I've never quite put them into a video like this one, which I'm sure you can tell by the title is dark romances that have deeply affected me. So ones that I hold in such high esteem because of the emotions they made me feel, because of the journey that they took me on. And for these ones, it's a very dark journey to some of the darkest places inside a character's psyche or dark places in the world as a whole. I was inspired to do this video by some conversations I've been having with my book bestie, Crystal. She is currently having a dark romance awakening, and I have so enjoyed the conversations that we've had, and it really made me think, the different things that she picks up that she is seeing that affect her so much, which you should definitely check out her channel for her words, but they've caused me to have that dialogue back with her about how those books are affecting me. This is also going to seem like a Pam Godwin fan video, and it is. I have a video actually deep diving on Pam Godwin that you can go check out. I will link it up above. But Pam Godwin is going to be on my channel this Saturday, which I believe is the next day, or either way, it's going to be soon. She's going to be on my channel soon. And I'm so excited to talk with her about some of these things and about why she puts some of them in her books. But it's definitely not exclusive to her. I just personally feel like of the indie authors writing today, that she does it among the best of them. So these first few books we're going to talk about are going to be hers, and then I will share with you some others that have also reached me that same way. So the first one I want to talk about is Dark Notes, which is the first book by Pam that I ever read. It was a lot of firsts for me. It was the first student teacher that I'd read that was as taboo as this one is. It was the first book I'd read with BDSM as healing and as putting power in the hands of a submissive. I had only really read some fun little kinky ones before this, and I'd enjoyed them. But this was the first time I'd read it where the power that was being given to the submissive is just the whole point of it. First off, I do want to say too, since we were talking about dark romance, there are a lot of trigger warnings in all these books I'm going to mention. So if you see me talk about one and I don't, I'm going to try to mention the specific trigger warnings for each one. But if you see me holding one of these books up, you personally, if you get triggered by anything, you should look up the triggers for that book. Don't assume that I've listed them all. I'm an imperfect person, but I just wanted to put that out at the front because I do care. But I feel like if you're watching this about dark romance, you know that, or this video might be convincing you to try a dark romance for the first time. And I want you to know that you need to take care of your mind and, your heart and spirit and make sure about that. But anyway, the reason why I say this is that this book in the first chapter has a huge trigger warning for rape. Our heroine, Ivory, she's in a tough spot, okay? She has to use her body as currency, as safety, as a lifeline for her, because her brother and her mom are not looking out for her needs. They don't give a fuck about her. And her brother's best friend has been raping her for years. Anally, vaginally, all the things. She also is having to use her body as currency to get money from other kids at school, men, boys. And she catches the eye of Emmerich, who is the new piano teacher, and she needs to have private lessons with him to be able to get into the school she wants to get into. And Emmerich has previously been in BDSM relationships, and he actually thinks that Ivory is a teacher when he first meets her, and then he finds out that she's not, and he's like, oh shit, I need to stay away from that. But he has so much compassion for her, and he's drawn into this relationship with her, and he sees someone who desperately needs his help. And let's not pretend it's not, because he's sexually attracted to her, but he quickly becomes one of the only people in her life who gives a damn about her and who puts her wants and needs and her betterment ahead of his own. And so this book just affected me so deeply, and it really sent me down a path of looking for dark romance that made me feel the way that this one did. And I just don't think that that is a common thing. I mean, I love a shocking dark romance as much as the next girl, but this one was deeply, deeply moving to me, and I loved it. And after I read Dark Notes, not soon after, Sea of Ruin came out. This book was amazing. It is amazing. This one is about Bennett, who is a 20-year-old pirate, 20-year-old pirate captain, and she has a husband named Priest who she's been estranged from. And near the beginning of this book, or around that, she gets captured by a pirate hunter named Ashley Cutler. And he keeps her captive in his cabin, because if he put her in the hold, she would be raped by the other pirates down there. So he keeps her as his private prisoner, and things quickly heat up between them. Bennett wants to use him to stay alive, and he fully knows that's what she's trying to do. And he is like, sure, we can have sex during this trip. You can see to my needs, but I'm still going to turn you in to be hung at the end of this. And no amount of sexual favors you do for me, none of that is going to change that. Or so he thinks. This book, I was fascinated by Bennett. This is a rare book of Pam's that only has Bennett's, like, only has one point of view. Pretty much every other book I've read of hers has dual POV. I can't think of, well, one of her other, very singularly, one of her other series does have that. So this was very fascinating to see that. Trigger warnings for assault, for rape, for attempted rape, for a lot of things in this one. And there are some controversial things in this book, but I personally want to say that a good dark romance to me doesn't shy away from those things. And those things are not what condemns the book for me if they're handled properly. And I will say that I trust no dark romance author more than Pam Godwin to take those things and handle them with care. So this book, wow. And that statement I just made about Pam's books holds nowhere more true than her Deliver series. This is just the first one. The third bind-up is actually coming out on the 24th. But I just want to hold up this one because I recently just reread books 2 and 3. Because I just wanted to be back in this crazy world. So this is one that I want to be kind of vague about, but to me personally, this series is the darkest dark romance series I've ever read. It is also one of the most moving and powerful and hopeful series that I've ever read. The issues that are dealt with in this book, sexual slavery, torture, abuse, child molestation, I don't know what else to call it, that's what happens. The things that are handled in this series, you will think that each book can't get darker, and it does. And you will think that you've had enough, and then the way that she's able to tell the story and the compassion that I feel and the love and the hope that I feel for these people is amazing. The first book in this series, Deliver, is about Liv, who is a sex trafficker, but she is also a victim of it and now has to continue on the cycle. And she kidnaps Josh, who is a 19-year-old pastoral student who is a virgin, which is what is on the list of their client, because Liv and Van, her partner in crime, they get a list of specifications for a slave, and then they kidnap that slave and they train them before bringing them to their buyer. Josh is one of the bravest young men I've ever read about. He has so much faith, and not just faith in God, but faith in Liv and in helping her keep her humanity. And Liv has done this a long time. She's kidnapped 7 other slaves, 1 a year basically, since she was a slave herself. And she's never been quite as confronted by what's happening and wanted to get out of it as much as she has with Josh. But things are not what they seem. And that is a pattern in this series. Because people you think are the villain, maybe they are the villain, but they have more to them than it seems. But Pam tests you with that belief in this book. Specifically, I think of, the third book in this series, where you are dead set with one belief. This belief just keeps getting reaffirmed and confirmed by everything you see, and then Pam flips over the coin and you see what's really happening. And then you're just in fucking awe of what's going on in this series. So I just love this series so dearly. When I reread these books, I'm just in awe, and it's hard for me to find other books that compare, even though I'm going to show you some, because if you can't tell by now, like, a big theme for me in these dark romances that move me is sexual healing, or healing from trauma, or learning a new way to cope with something through sex, through relationships, because you're never more intimate with someone than when you're sharing your body and your heart with them. And sometimes your body gets shared first, and sometimes your heart gets shared first, as it will with some of these we're going to get to. But gotta keep going. Where else should we go? I don't know. There's so many beautiful ones to pick from. Let's go with this one, because this is a book that I'm looking forward to rereading when I get one of my friends to read it. And that's Hurt by Lydia Michaels. This one has kind of a janky cover, so I'll tell you that. I first read this on ebook. And this book is about Callan McGregor and Emery Tanner. This book is told in 2 time periods. There is trigger warnings for male and female rape in this book. Abuse, trauma, all the things, as I've said. Look up the trigger warning specifically for any of these books that I'm holding up, okay? But this book is amazing. So Callan McGregor is Scottish, and he used to be forcibly a part of kind of a gang / mob in, I think it was just straight up in Scotland. I'm not sure. So the 2 times that we see is when he is stuck in that situation in Scotland, and then we see present time. In present time, he is a bartender for a hotel, and Emery is the front desk clerk, worker, whatever. And they've been having this flirtation go back and forth, and he's nervous to ask her out, and she's nervous to ask him out, but they have this really cute flirtation, and we know that it's building to something. And then one night, after Callum has locked up, she's finishing some work. A patron had stayed in the hotel, and he jumps her when she's in the bathroom, and he viciously rapes her. And because he's the son of a rich prick, it's going to be hard to prove that she didn't want it. Now, Callum happens to have forgotten something, / he really just wanted to come back so he could walk her to her car, and he finds her in the bathroom. And he steps up to be the one to take care of her, because she doesn't have anyone else. She doesn't have any family. She doesn't really have any friends. And so he becomes her caretaker, and they both, like, she specifically during that, she's trying to get over this trauma, which was so fresh, and she's also so angry because there was something good that was building with her and Callum, and not that he would turn away from her for being raped, but that she doesn't feel worthy of this beautiful, pure thing that they had. And that's when he starts to share with her that I'm not this perfect guy. I, had this past, I lived this life before, and I understand what you're going through more than you think. So this book is so beautiful, and I love it so much, and I have never seen anyone else talk about this book, because I found this one when I read a different book by Lydia Michaels, Breaking Perfect, which is another one I love, and I was just looking up other books about her, and I had never heard this one talked about before. It's brilliant. We're just going to keep going with the sexual healing because I love it, and most of these have sexual healing, as I've said. Twisted Emotions by Cora Reilly. I have waxed poetic about this book, y'all know. This book, some of my friends have read as a standalone because I hyped it up so much they skipped right to this book. I feel like you like it the most if you read Twisted Loyalties first, at least to understand. Even better yet, if you're someone who likes to binge, I suggest you start at the beginning of Cora Reilly's Bound by Blood series. But I understand you don't have to do that. You can do whatever the fuck you want. You can just read it as a standalone. I don't recommend it, but whatever you're going to do, it's worth it to get to Twisted Emotions, because this is about an arranged marriage between Nino Falcone, who is the second in command in the Vegas Camorra, and Chiara Vitiello, who is the niece, I believe she's the niece or the cousin of our capo in New York, which is Luca. And she gets kind of sacrificed for a peace deal with Nino, because Remo and Nino, they don't really follow what the Familia people do, but in this case they're like, yeah, we'll get a wife, they'll be more compliant because we'll have one of their women, and we can fight against Dante, which Dante's our third capo in the situation that not everybody likes. And Chiara was raped by one of her uncles when she was 13, so there's your trigger warning for that. And she is terrified. And she would be terrified either way, but she's even more terrified because there's this thing that happens. You have to be a virgin in a mafia marriage, otherwise you're seen as dirty. That's what she's expecting. So she's only heard horrible things about the Camorra, and she's expecting this new husband to go to consummate their wedding night and to be pissed that she's not a virgin. But instead, Nino gives her the blood of her rapist on her wedding sheets. And it's one of my single favorite greatest moments in a fiction novel. Like, I have so much love for this. And for this book and Twisted Pride alone, I will be a Cora Reilly fan forever. Thankfully, I like most of what she's written, so it's not a hardship. But for Twisted Emotions and Twisted Pride alone, I would be her fan forever. So take that for what you will. Nino also is a little bit neurodivergent. It is trauma-based. Him and his brothers were mistreated when they were young. They had no one to depend on but themselves. And so he doesn't think he can love. And so that is just fine with Chiara in the beginning until she starts to feel more for him, and they start working through her sexual trauma together in some of these absolutely beautiful scenes in this series. It's so beautiful. So I highly recommend Twisted Emotions. Let's stay with the Mafia, and we actually have a really new release. This book just came out the 1st of August. It is my favorite book that I've read by this author so far, and I absolutely adore it, and that is Savage Tracker by Maggie Cole. This is another one where I think that if you read the series in order, you will understand things because a lot of it overlaps itself. But that being said, if you don't want to do that, I still recommend you read this as a standalone, because she wraps enough of it up in it. That'd be okay. The audiobook is fucking fantastic. It has two of my favorite narrators ever who do it. But this one is another like BDSM as healing situation, because we have our heroine, Selena, who was in a forced master-slave relationship in her marriage for 10 years. She is an immigrant from Greece. Her husband never let her get a green card or papers, and so she's completely dependent on him. And she finally gets the strength to get a divorce from him. And the Ivanovs, she is a friend of one of the Ivanovs' girlfriends, and so they give her a place to stay while her divorce is happening and while her ex-husband is a danger to her. And Albrecht sorry, I always say his name wrong. Obrecht Ivanov happens to also live in that building, and so his brother is like, hey, will you just keep an eye on Selena, just make sure she's safe? And he's like, sure, cool. And they meet each other like at the gym or the pool at this building a lot, and it becomes clear that they share certain proclivities, because even though Selena was forcibly in a master-slave relationship with her husband, she realizes that there is other kinds of masters or doms that could be right for her, because she has this natural need in her to submit to someone. She wants to do that. And Obrecht, he tops at a BDSM club sometimes, and they both notice these tendencies in each other. And the thing is that Obrecht doesn't do long term, and that's what Selena is needing, is she's needing someone who can give her that safety in a way she's never known. And Obrecht has to come to the realization if he wants to be that for her. But he starts out as kind of teaching her what she can set up as boundaries. He doesn't tell her what her own boundaries are, but he shows her how to set them. He helps her get connected with a therapist who understands how BDSM can be helpful. This book is just fucking amazing. It's so good. It's so well put together. Maggie Cole just has such like a light touch. There's still like some humor in this book. It's not completely depressing, but there are also moments in it that will just chill you to the bone. Like with just like a specific example in this, like they are kind of testing out their dynamic, and he asks her to have dinner with him, and she kneels on the ground by his feet, expecting to be fed from a dog bowl, because when her husband was her master, he would feed her out of a dog bowl at his feet. And she thinks that's how all masters are. And Obrecht is just like, okay, it's not that that's a completely wrong thing, because there are people who have those dynamics who are consenting in it, but you have not consented to any of those things. So it was wrong for you to be forced to do it. If you want consensual non-consent in some aspects, you still have to consent beforehand. And I just thought it was great. It's not too preachy about it, but it also will like just hit you at certain moments where you're like, the fuck happened to this woman, the way she was treated. And watching Obrecht help her get her power back is so beautiful. Like, I love it. Then there is Poison by Jade West. This book is so crazy. This book is so crazy. This one also has a pretty twisted relationship. These two, they're a bit nasty, and in a sexy way, but they're pretty nasty. Yes, this is someone chewing on underwear, so know that. Jade West is not afraid to go to the crazy places, so just know that. Just know that going in, we'll be all good. But this is about Anna and Lucas. Now, Anna and Lucas were in a relationship for a while, and he cheated on her. I believe he was drinking, maybe doing drugs. Some stuff happened, and he wouldn't have been with that woman, but she ended up getting pregnant. And so Anna chose to leave so that he could make a go of it with his baby mama. Now it might have been 10 years, 6 years. I'm not sure how many years it's been. Maybe 6, 10, something like that. Anna has epilepsy. This is in Own Voices. Jade West, at the time she was writing this book, she had been diagnosed with epilepsy, and her epilepsy has been going up and down and all around and not great. And even when Anna and Lucas were together, a lot of people didn't want them to be because they thought their relationship was toxic, poison, if you will. But Anna has recently broken up with her boyfriend, who is, up to this point, hasn't been physically abusive, but he has been very like demeaning and cruel to her. And she breaks up with him, and she reaches out to Lucas and asks if they can have like a weekend together. Just one weekend, because she hasn't been getting sexually what she's wanted from him, because she likes CNC, she likes dubious consent, consensually. She likes, there is some like spit stuff in this one. There is dirty underwear as a thing. Like, this one is pretty kinky. Like, it is right on the edge of like, ooh, I don't quite like it. But also, it's really powerful because I've said this before, like, waterworks isn't my thing. However, there's a scene in this that broke my heart. One of the things that her boyfriend she had currently would make fun of her for is when she would have seizures, sometimes she would pee herself. You know, your bowels let go. And he would humiliate her about it. Something she cannot control because she's having a physical issue. And there's a time when that happens in here and Lucas is just like, who the fuck cares? So we wash the sheets. Like, it's fine. And he's like ready to go down on her right then. And like, I know, I get it. I get it if this is uncomfortable for you. But when you walk through it with Jade West and you know how much that means to Anna, that not only would he not shame her for, number one, something she can't control, but number two, would still be aroused by her when that's happened to her. Like, it's very powerful. This one is probably like, for the ick factor, I could see why this one might not work for people. As well, trigger warnings for an actual rape. There is a rape in here at some point. Not by the hero. Only consensual, non-consensual. All right, and then the last one, you know this had to make the list. And only because I am still stunned by how this book works for me so well and how wonderfully well I think it's done. I've read books claiming to be the next Untouchable, and they're not. So we have the good old Carter Mahoney, Untouchable by Sam Mariano. I know why this doesn't work for some people. I completely understand. But this book fascinates me. I think it's sexy as hell. I think our heroine, the way that she's willing to tackle the psyche of our hero and put herself almost in the line of fire, if you will, to contain this monster just between her and him. I love it so much. So this is, I mean, I'm being honest, this is one of like 5 or less high school bully romances that I can stand. And the reason for me this works is that them being in high school, the only reason this is set in high school is as a setting device to keep our heroine vulnerable. Because if she was a grown-up who had a job and had finished college and all these things, Carter would not be able to keep his thumb on her. But while he's in high school, this guy rules the town, okay? He's the high school quarterback, his family's rich, all the girls want him, he has everyone dancing to his strings, and then our heroine Zoe gets his friend in trouble for assault, which he did do. And Zoe stands up to him and gets that man, Jake, kicked off the football team, and it makes her a target of the bullies, and specifically puts her in the target of Carter Mahoney. Our first interaction in this book between Carter and Zoe is when he face fucks her in an empty classroom. And he gives her the choice. Do you want me to rape you or face fuck you? You choose. And that is our intro to them. Why does this book work for me? Well, again, it works for me because Zoe is always able to decide the lesser of two evils. And I'm not excusing him for laying down that ultimatum, because it's still rape, it's still assault. No matter where he put his dick, that's what was happening, and his friends were watching it. But her defiance and but not her stupid defiance, because she knows that she can choose the lesser of two evils, get out of this alive, and then reevaluate. And there's something about how smart Zoe is. And now that she's made herself a known entity to him, and he decides that I want to keep poking at this butterfly, I want to tear off its wings, and she just continually questions him. And more so than Carter ever has before, he is a little bit stunned that she would question him, and even more stunned that he starts to answer back, and that he's willing to have a dialogue with her about why he's this way and what is wrong with his head that he does the things he does. And he is just unrelenting and forceful and comes after her and eventually like wins her. But in a way that she's aware how fucked up it is all the way through, the whole time. She's never has rose-colored glasses on about him and thinks that she's going to change the beast. She knows what she's doing. And she makes the calculated decision that having Carter Mahoney as your lover and your number one is much better than being on his shit list. And things will go a lot more easy for you if you do. I still, like, I've given you some reasons, but I completely understand when this book doesn't work for someone. And again, I've read book after book after book claiming, not the author claiming, but other readers telling me is like him. And I've read so few. I've read maybe one other one that even comes close to him. And he's brilliant. Like, Sam Mariano has not even written me another man like this. I mean, I'm sure she's not trying to completely copy him, but she hasn't even written another hero that hits me like this. So, there you go. Well, there you go. Those are some dark romances that have moved me and have made the biggest impression on me. Again, if you're used to reading lighter, fluffier books, please take caution, but also maybe push yourself. If you don't have any triggers, dive into some of these. Like, I didn't know what I was doing when I read Dark Notes, and it stunned me with its beauty. And I think because I didn't have preconceived notions, it worked for me. Thank you to my channel members for sponsoring this video. I'm sorry it took me so long to film it. I'm in a bit of a transition period in my life, so I wasn't in a good mind frame for filming. But if you'd like to check out channel memberships, you can do that down below. I also have a link to my merch in my link tree, all that fun stuff. So thank you so much for watching. I put out new videos 3 to 4 times a week, and you can watch some more right now.